What's up, everybody? I'm Thomas J. Bellezza, and welcome to another episode of the Right Mindset Podcast. Today, I bring to you a guest that I have known for quite some time. He is a writer, a screenplay writer, an author, you name it, a business owner. He's a man with a plan. I'd like to introduce you to Mr. Mike Domino. Hey, Mike, how's it going today?
Hi, Thomas. How are you?
Excellent. Why don't you tell the audience a little bit about you before we get started?
Okay, I'll be happy to do that. See, I was born in Astoria, Flushing. I'm sorry, and I was raised on Long Island in Huntington, South Huntington. I'm married. I have my wife and three grown daughters and four grandchildren. I'm happy to report. Um, so that's a big part of my life now, being Papa. I love being called Papa. I can't hear you, Thomas.
I said, did you have to audition for that, or they just give that away now?
No, it's they watch you closely. They hold your feet to the fire. They want a good Papa.
They do, right?
If I start to tease them and get a little mildly like mean,
Yeah.
They'll say, you don't do that, Papa. Why is your face like that? They watch every little thing. Why are you not smiling?
Now, for non-parents out here, non-grandparents, what would you say is more rewarding, being a parent to children or being a grandpa, a pop-up to grandchildren?
Um, I have to go with the grandchildren episode because, first of all, I have more time in my life for them. With my own daughters, I was building a business and moving from here to there, getting home late. So I have a lot of time now, and whenever they're around, if they come to me, I won't look off to the distance. I'll actually be there.
You'll be present.
There.
Yeah, I mean, growing up, the one thing I remember is anytime I saw my grandparents, they hand me money, and anytime I saw my parents, they told me to go do things. So, just, but as a writer, has your writing experience changed because going from being a parent to a grandparent? Has it influenced your writing in any way?
That's a good question. I think I'm more relaxed, more of a complete person. With the grandchildren there, it's gone full circle. There's three girls and one boy, and the boy looks a lot like me. They skipped a generation. He looks more like me than his father. So
Yeah.
that gives me a good thrill. Every time I see him, I see myself.
Good. It means you carry on. It's like mini you.
Yeah. It's mini me, mini Mike.
Yeah. Are you teaching them all the tricks and trades to being a Mike?
Well, they were here a few weeks ago, and they were very, very curious about my writing.
Oh.
I kept my computer, with everyone else, so I wouldn't have to leave the room. And Aubrey is her name, came up to me and says, "Papa, what are you doing?" And I said, "I'm writing." "Oh, really? What are you writing?" They've heard, things about my books and movies and all that, so they're kind of tuned into it. And I just said, "I'm writing another screenplay. That's a play, like you would write a play." And so she says, "I want to do that. I want to do that." And she did. She got a piece of paper, she got a crayon, and she wrote a little vignette about a little girl getting lost in the woods. And then she had us all, she handed out the roles. And then she had us, what do you call it? Practice.
Yeah.
Practice it. And then we put it on for the other guests that we had.
Now, for the non-screenwriters out there listening to the show, when he says she handed out roles, there was no butter involved. A roll.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, that's great. And you write both novels and screenplays, so it's interesting to see that watch a grandchild gravitate towards one particular. Do you gravitate towards one particular? Like, which one do you And I know, even though you're making movies, is there a preference inside you where you're like, I kind of like this over that? Which one do you prefer?
Yeah, I guess I like writing short stories.
Mm-hmm.
As a matter of fact, what I did it reverse. I had already written two screenplays and kind of put them on the shelf. And I'm not good about putting things on the shelf. If I put in whatever a year of my life, I'm
Yeah.
getting something out of that. And what I get out of that is I use Create Space or one of the other author websites for printing, and I get them made up. And there's nothing. It's a big thrill to me when the box shows up from the printing house, and I open it up, and you get that ink smell,
Oh yeah.
and all the books are nice and nice and level, and
Look at that. Yeah, 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 yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, no,
So
it is.
yeah, but I got to like writing screenplays as well. I
Mm-hmm.
really so what I did was I just converted them into stories, not novellas really. They're small books,
Yeah.
but people tend to like a quick read lately.
Hey, as any man will say, size does not matter.
Yeah,
Don't judge us by our size. So, what is the process for you to take a story that you created as a book and convert it to a screenplay? Like, how do you relate the two? Because in a book, you can breathe a little bit. You can take times and moments. You could actually explore characters a little deeper. Whereas in a screenplay, time is money. Every line is a
right.
dollar, or
Yeah.
in a sense. So, how, since they're your babies too, the books, what is your process of converting it from a novel per se to a screenplay?
Well, I have to first add more dialogue and description. This description, because they can't, they're not seeing it on a screen, so I need to describe for the reader, what they're looking at. And so it's a reverse process, as I mentioned before.
Mm-hmm.
um, and it comes out really well. I'm really proud of those two novellas that I did based on scripts.
Oh, I see. You're saying you took scripts and turned them into novellas.
Yeah, yeah,
Oh, okay, all right. I was saying like the other way around, but yeah, that makes sense. Like, because in the screenplay, anything that's quote unquote descriptive is just considered action. It's what we're going to see on the screen, and it has to be narrative form, or it's wasted space. Whereas in a novel, you have to create those sensory moments. You got to immerse the characters. It's all about show, not tell. And for anyone who's listening, show is always the presentation of a character's experience through the moment, and telling is the recounting through the author's perspective. And
hmm
that's the main difference between show and tell, is like, are the characters experiencing this, or is the author telling you what they're seeing?
yeah.
So that's also an interesting process too, because again, screenplaying, like I said, the action set, and for anyone listening, action is the pieces that are not dialogue that dictate the movement within the scene. Is different as a writing process than it is to write out a prose,
hmm
right? So, do you like writing prose over, say, action description?
Um, either one of them works for me. It's just wherever my mind takes me. My the process that I go through is, I'm a morning worker for the most part. By two
Yeah,
o'clock or later, I'm ready for something else, but not including this show,
yeah, 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 yeah. Of course. Yeah.
which
This is
came off at 2 o'clock. No,
it's
really, I
leisure.
just I close. I drink a coffee. I take a cup of coffee. I close my eyes, or I'll go swimming in a pool.
Yeah,
Wherever I
yeah.
go, there's always a pool nearby.
Not with
And
your computer, though.
what?
You won't swim with your computer.
No, no, no. But I will. But I will, as I'm writing, lapse because it's so repetitive.
Oh yeah, yeah,
I'm able to visualize things in my mind, and then when I get out, I'll jot it all down and then expand upon it
yeah.
that way.
Interesting. And
So, what?
oh, so as a writer, when you're doing that, it sounds like you're kind of exploring and discovering the story. But are you someone that will take those discoveries and kind of outline it, or do you just allow yourself to pants through or garden through a story idea?
Yeah, I'll start writing. Today I had to. Today I was invited to be a guest on a very nice blog.
Yeah.
but all of a sudden a golf ball came through my window. Oh my gosh. The landlords, the real estate person said that where this house is located, it shouldn't get hit by golf balls,
And it did.
and it did. So anyway, I just made that up right
Oh,
there.
I see. Oh, that was pretty
I'm
ballsy.
in Florida. We're on a golf course, so I made up a little vignette just to show you how fast and how I can introduce characters like
All
that.
right, nice, nice. Yeah, yeah. So what we call that in storytelling for the audience is Mike actually created plot. So story would be how it would develop. So in that situation, you created plot pretty quickly.
Yeah.
But story is the emotional entwined moment of the character or characters involved in that. So, and that's the thing. Like plot is pretty simple to throw out. You know, like they're ideas, they're things that have to move, things that have to happen. But as writers, one of the best part about being a writer, I think, is exploring the plot through story, and you know, because there are only 7 stories you could tell.
Mm-hmm.
Right, there's only 7. You got the monster story, you have the hero's
Wow.
journey, you have so right. But the story itself is pretty complex always, because it's the choices characters make, the
Yeah.
choices to do or not do, say or not say. Right? How do you discover your characters' choices in the stories? Do you just allow whatever you want to happen, or do you put time into really understanding that character's decision to say or not say, do or not do?
Yeah, that's a thrilling part about this, creating a character. Wow.
Yeah.
It's just like it's like magic. You have a blank piece of paper, and then in 15 minutes, you have a person,
Yeah.
a person with a life, and then integrate them into the story is another thrill. But I'm pretty good at inventing characters. People have complimented me on my characters that I dream up, or it could be something that I've seen. I spend a lot of time walking around the city, just studying people, sitting on park benches. I'm a great people watcher.
Now, do
So
they get upset when they notice you following them into their apartments and stuff?
no, no, no.
I brought you a latte. Don't worry.
Yeah, yeah. I did a lot of writing on the corner of Park Avenue and East 34th Street.
Oh, nice, nice.
There's a few nice benches. It's very hard to find benches in New York and Manhattan,
Yeah.
but there's like 4. It's like a Catholic church, but it's like their administrative office. So
Now,
it's a big beautiful building, and they maintain those benches.
yeah, they got all the nice bed. They clean off the pigeon poo. Uh,
Yeah, they do. So it was. I spent a lot of time there, and that's why this book here, it chose the title Park Avenue to Park Bench.
nice, nice. And do you find yourself doing that in Florida, or there's just not enough people walking quickly as they have those the what do you call it, the walkers and
Yeah, yeah, yeah. There's a lot of those kind of people here. No, but I've done some writing here, little vignettes, and I have an idea for a movie, a Florida movie. It's called Manatee Man. I haven't written this one yet,
yeah,
but he just to make it quick, him and his brother fall into a sinkhole, which is a big fear here,
yeah,
sinkholes.
yeah, yeah.
And the one brother is rescued. The second brother is never found, and he got saved by a manatee.
All right, nice.
Yeah.
The humanity.
So I can do it in Florida. I can substitute Florida for. I wrote one called Hillbilly Egg Roll.
Nice,
I
nice.
went to this just a roadside. They sell boiled peanuts here. This is Central Florida. This is not Miami.
Oh, you're there's clear water, right? There's isn't that Central
We're
Florida?
far from the water,
Ocala,
on the
Dunedin.
coast, but we're in the middle of the state. So
Yeah, that's like Ocala, Dunedin.
Ocala.
Yeah, 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 yeah.
Ocala would be the closest.
Yeah, I lived there for a long time.
Oh, you did.
Yeah, Ocala, Dunedin, all those areas. I rode the horses out there. It was
So you
like,
know what it's like. It looks more like Wyoming than Florida.
yeah, yeah, yeah. And what's weird is like There's alligators right in Spring Park. Like
They're right behind the house in the golf course ponds.
yeah, they just hang out, and it's like if your ball goes in the water, you go, I'm gonna just
Yeah,
I'm gonna
yeah,
lose a point. Let's just
they're out there. We watch them every day.
oh wow. Do you ever talk to them to be like, what's your story? You know?
No, no, no dialogue. I haven't made a character that's an alligator, but you just gave me an idea.
See, there you go. You could be like, hey, do you know anyone who's a pair of boots? And they're like, oh, my Uncle Sam, you know,
We named him. We call him Percy.
a purse because he's a purse.
Yeah.
That's funny. So do you mostly write vignettes? Because you held up a bunch of books. Those aren't short stories because they look like they're what 40,
These
50,000 words each.
there's these are short stories. Um, this is a novel about base jumping.
Okay, and it has nothing to do with instruments,
No,
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 or fishing because
nothing.
bass.
No fishing. So, what was the question again?
Do you mostly write vignettes, or because it looks
Yeah,
like you wrote most
I
of the
write
novels.
in a lot of my writing is a combination of vignettes that are woven together and then edited. So yeah, I'm big like that. Rather than I don't write like 5 pages of one thing. I'll write various sectors
Yeah.
the story as I imagine it, and then it begins to mold together.
So when you say vignettes, are you talking you write mostly scene work and then you just combine scenes?
Yeah, you
Because
like
a
that? Yeah,
vignette, yeah, a vignette is a little bit different than combining scenes to make a greater story. The moment you connect vignettes, now they're no longer vignettes because there's a word count to a vignette
right.
and a style to a vignette. So if anyone's listening to the show, you know, there is a major, and a short story is different than a vignette.
Yeah.
Like there's different realities to those word counts. Are you conscious of your word counts when you write, or do you just write and then whatever it is, it
I
is?
just write. I just write.
Oh, all right, nice,
Yeah.
nice. So, are you formally trained, or this is just something you've developed over the years, where you're like, I always wanted to write, and I have these stories, so I'm just gonna get them out.
Well, as a kid, in retrospect, I look back and I was always like, writing little letters to the editor at Newsday,
Mhm.
and I just thought about it today. I remember the gas station put up all these flags, like grand opening flags. You know those
Yeah,
they stream them.
yeah,
And I remember, I think I wrote to Newsday. I was complaining about like eye pollution in
yeah.
Huntington. I mean, what kid cares about things like that?
Well, it is Huntington.
Yeah, Huntington Station actually. So
Oh yeah, yeah, it's
wasn't by the water.
even nicer.
Yeah. Yeah, the vignettes come together. So I have the New York Times published 4 of my little vignettes.
Nice, nice.
Yeah, just roaming around. One in a bar. Another one I found uh, a lead Indian, a bronze Indian statue,
Yeah,
a Native American statue in the garbage can up on the Upper East Side, Carl Sears Park,
yeah. Was it
and
starving?
I wrote about that, and they published that.
Oh, well, that's awesome that you got published in the New York Times. You said
Yeah, 4 times.
very cool.
Little
And
tiny things, little tiny things.
do you continue to send them stuff and be like, "Hey, I got another vignette. Can you submit that? Can you pop that in?"
No, I haven't. I haven't. I'm not spending as much time in the city because my daughter is living in our little condo. We have a small little condominium there,
Yeah,
and that was always my man cave, my escape place, place to write, place to think, place to invite other writers. We wrote 2 scripts from there. So
very
my
cool.
daughter's welcome to be there. She actually broke her hip,
Oh,
and she recovered with us down here for 3 months. But now she's back. She's using a little cane.
very good.
Well, I'm not pushing her out.
Yeah, 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 yeah. You're like, you can
but
enjoy the condiments all you want.
yeah,
The
but
condominiums.
on the flip side, it's I don't have the same sort of opportunity to observe like humanity
Yeah, yeah.
and the things that are going on, in front of and behind the canyon walls.
Interesting. Now, do you like jot down notes throughout the day if you see something, or you just like put it in your
I
little?
use the iPhone notes.
Oh, nice.
I have hundreds, thousands of notes. So I'll write on the spot,
Yeah.
whatever. When I get the idea or when I see something, I'll compose it, and then save it, and then later put it onto my laptop and go from there.
And give it a look see. All right,
Yeah.
that's pretty interesting. I got a question. I have some previously written questions. I'm gonna throw one at you here.
Okay. I'll do my best.
How has your writing process evolved over time, and what factors have influenced those changes?
The It's gotten more in depth. My characters descriptions, the plots have more characters. I'm able to carry a story with multiple characters.
Hmm.
Um, that's pretty. I began writing. Okay, we spoke about my writing as a kid. But about 15 years ago, I went to the movies. It was the Lincoln Center movie theater, and I watched a movie called Factotum,
Okay.
Charles Bukowski.
Yeah, yeah. Old film.
Yeah, yeah, it's an old film, and I watched it, and so I'm in the city. I'm spending a lot of time alone, wandering around, and Charles Bukowski would write the most, as you know, these most wonderful little descriptive things about. He didn't care about punctuation. He didn't care about whether it rhymed or not.
Yeah,
He was a heavy drinker, a gambler, womanizer, and I said, after watching that movie, and like I worked in a lot of factory jobs growing up too, so I could relate to that part of his experience.
yeah.
But I went to after the movie. I went right to the bookstore in Grand Central, and I picked up a few of his books, and I went home, and I was just captivated by this man who could just write, for the average man and woman, little stories and brief encounters with people meeting other people or his dog, his
Yeah.
cats. And so I began to I can't say I imitated because I had my own style. It wasn't as hardcore as his can be.
Yeah.
Mine was a little on the softer edge, but I did some of them I could go over and be more like him, but that wasn't the object. It was just he gave me the confidence to go out and take snapshots, but not with a camera, with
Yeah,
my
yeah.
mind's eye.
And then paint it onto the pages of a novel.
Right.
Now, is that something that you still try to become inspired through? Is through the works of others and allow the way people tell stories to kind of get you pumped to tell your own stories?
Well, anytime I read a book, I'll take note of the style or get some ideas. But uh, unfortunately, I haven't really been writing, as much as I'd like to because we've been working on films.
Mm-hmm.
But we're going back into the studio, the writing studio, which is going to be like this, Skype or whatever, and we're gonna do some rewriting. We have
Nice.
two scripts that we would like to convert to movies, feature films, but my partner read them and likes them both, and decided that they need rewriting, especially in the middle. He likes the beginning, he likes the end.
But not the
Uh,
middle.
needs work in the middle.
You need a good strong middle, like the middle is made up of three essential moments. You have the ascending rise to the midpoint conflict, then you have the midpoint conflict, then you have the descending fall from the midpoint conflict, and each of those have purposes, for the audience. The rise to the midpoint is there to showcase how they are capable based on everything you've presented in the first act. Then the midpoint's supposed to release or prove the truth of the lie that the protagonist or protagoni had believed. So
Mm-hmm.
basically, whatever they believed going up to the midpoint has now changed. They are witnesses to the truth. And because of that new information, they need to find a solution. That's why the descending fall from midpoint conflict is known as finding solution. And they discover the solution by the end of that process of the second act, which leads them into the third act resolution. So it's always interesting to be like, well, and there are rules, like going to the midpoint, you have to show your characters capable, even with pushback and challenging them, and but you never want them to be beaten. And then the midpoint is where you get to beat them and just destroy, even if it's a romance, you get to hurt their heart. But now you get to see how they think, and you get everything we learned about the characters. We see them processing the discovery of that solution they're searching for. So it's always interesting to work on the second act.
Yeah.
Now, do you break? Oh, go
Back to
ahead.
your question. So I would have to say that I'm self-taught. I took one composition class in college. I got an A in it, but my education was more on the technical side.
Yeah.
So, but deep inside of me was always lurking this writer. Just needed to give myself permission to do it.
Yeah, and that's important, especially for people listening. When you find something that you connect with, do what you can to do it, even if it's not all the time. Just you have to feed your soul. I remember when
Yeah.
I wanted to write, I picked up a few instructional books. They were called these how to read books, right? But I couldn't get past the instructions because it was written in language and I couldn't read yet. So I basically used them as a couple. Just kidding. I've never learned how to read. I just write. I can't read what I write. I just write, and then I have other people read it to me. And if it sounds good, no. Now, do you have trusted? Oh, go ahead. Go ahead.
It's just a wonderful process. To me, it's like another world. It's just it's a great thing, and I need it in my life. It rounds out my existence. I need to be doing some art, even if it's just like this. I consider art. What we're doing here. We're exchanging ideas, giving suggestions to people, and talking about writing and filmmaking. And I describe filmmaking as filmmaking is not an art. And then people will be like, what? I say, it's all the arts.
Oh, yeah.
That's the allure. It's got, the printed word. It has illustrations. It has music. It has it all. It's the full package. But I didn't just jump into it. It was a 15-year growth process to understand and get to that point. This was a homemade poster of my first movie.
Nice. Now, when you release your books, you self-publish, right?
Yeah.
What is your process? Do you just have books printed out and then you just sell them randomly to people, or do you have a marketing campaign? Like, do you have a release? Like, do you do a full release day? Do you try to get it distributed? Like, what's your process for other self-published authors to hear how you do it?
Well, we go on, I think it's called Create Space, which I believe is owned by Amazon. So they automatically will, when you publish the book through them, they'll automatically put the book on Amazon Prime account. They have something called an author's page. So we establish the author's page, and then my assistant in my plastics company, Beth Jones, she's a wonderful social media person. So we'll create a Facebook page, probably a website, and then we'll go on and we'll just do some paid ads on Google or Facebook. Not a lot of money, like maybe $50 a month, for a book, and a little maybe $75 for a movie. Mm-hmm. And I let it run for a while, maybe about a year, and then move on. I mean, I got a royalty check about 3 weeks ago for $92.
Woo!
Yeah,
that's a dinner.
I know.
But you got paid for your art, and that's an exciting thing,
Yeah.
Would you recommend that process for other writers if they want to make a living as a writer?
I think people could. I would recommend that because it's not that expensive. I think the one book here cost me like $7 per book, and I was selling them for $10. And one of the books is related to a story which you know very well about Montauk.
Yeah.
I actually touched base with a hotel owner out there, and he asked for 10 copies. Great. He put them in the front lobby, and they sold. And then there's some people that sell shellfish out of the back of their pickup truck.
Yeah.
So I sent them about 10 books, and she asked for more.
Yeah.
So that story was my only point of purchase book sales. Everything else has been online.
So the sea sails sell at the seashore.
Yes,
So say
yes.
that 5 times fast. The sea sails. Um, so when I say is that process something that a writer could do to make a living? Um, is it viable though? That method where it's the $50 a month ads and do it for a year, and you publish your own book, and then like could an author quit their job basically?
Definitely not. The the traditional method is still very powerful
Mm-hmm.
as far as agents and publishers. Seems to me that the way into the publisher is to get a good agent, and I haven't been all that successful in that area. Um,
Have you tried to get an agent, and like what have you learned from it?
yeah, I had a book agent. What I learned for it is that they take money. They like you got to pay them to get your book published.
Well, yeah, they get paid on a percentage because they're agents, employment agents, like for the model agency, or like to get you work.
Right.
They hit the same button. I mean, there's three checks, and you pick one of them. Because
Right.
I got my agency license almost, and then I decided not to do it because when I had the theater, it was a conflict of interest, and they said it would be a tricky. So I just consulted people,
Yeah.
but legally they're only allowed to take up to 10% of any monies they earn, but
Oh,
any upfront money would technically be they would lose their agency license
oh,
unless they don't have an agency license, and then they're just like, I'm an agent, which
yeah.
I guess you
Yeah.
can do.
I think that was the case in my story.
Yeah. Could Do you remember the agency that you went through, just so we
It was just
writers can
it was
avoid
a
them?
woman who worked out of her apartment on the west side.
Nice.
Yeah.
All right, very good, very good. So you're saying no women agents? Is that what you're saying? Don't go. Is that what you're saying?
No, no, no. She helped me with my stories. She helped me compose Park Avenue to Park Bench.
Nice, nice.
He gave me the idea to write about the base jump people, which I actually wrote in the voice of a female. It was a real
Nice.
challenge for me. Not only did I have to learn a sport that I knew nothing about,
Yeah.
not zero. I mean, I went and I bought books on this. It's called wingsuit flying,
Or
and
plunging.
I had to learn the sport.
Yeah.
I had to figure out how to write in the word of a emergency room doctor, female,
Yeah.
and I think it came out pretty good.
Now, as a man, uh, we typically don't understand women, even if we've been married to them for 20 years. So, did you find that learning about this emergency woman voice, did it help you with communicating with women?
um, what it helped me with is giving me the confidence that if I could write a novel, albeit a short novel,
Yeah.
in the voice of a woman and get good feedback, boy, that means I could write just about anybody.
Anything.
I could be anybody I want to be, and it'll should come out reasonably well.
Now, how do you get it so when you open the book, there's a woman's voice that comes out of it?
It just starts. It just
Just
starts.
starts. She's just like, I'm on a plane. Like it's just a female voice that reads the book for you.
Chapter 1. Lake held out his hand to Bretta as a sharp, thin wind whipped her hair around her neck, prickling the skin zip tight under the nylon purple collar. Though the restrictive visor of her helmet and her goggles, which were several layers thick, she could clearly see the pleading light in his eyes. As she stood motionless, she watched him extend his fingers even further apart, but even with his arm.
So you mostly write in third person when you write your vignettes.
Yeah, yeah.
Now, what is it that you learned in your research that makes a quote unquote female's voice when writing opposed to a male voice? What would you consider as the difference?
Um, Maybe more sensitive. sensitive to other people around her. Very, very dedicated to. In this case, she's a trauma nurse in a hospital in Los Angeles.
Yeah.
Um, in reality, it's really not that big of a difference. I don't. It is men and women. I have 3 daughters and 3 granddaughters, and my
Yeah.
wife, and the dog is a girl. So,
Does the
I don't know if
female
I can.
dog treat you like the other women?
I don't know if I can put it cleverly in words, but it was about confidence. It was about confidence, and once I did the first chapter and sat down with this woman who was also a writing coach,
Yeah.
and she said, "Good." She said, "Good." I can't tell that a man wrote this.
Now, would you say that, like, if there was an emergency, an EMT female and an EMT male, and they were working on the same hurt body, the female EMT would be concerned for the person's being, whereas the guy would just be poking them with what they needed to get them to the hospital. Is that what
Could
you're saying?
Yeah, like that. Yeah, yeah. Maybe you involve the family.
Well, yeah,
Suggest
yeah, but I'm just saying between the guy and the girl, like the guy would just be like, "This is a job. Let me play it by the numbers," and the female or the girl would just be like, "Well, I care about the person."
Yeah, yeah. I believe so.
All right, all right. So, like if I'm writing a story, right, with a guy and a girl character, I should always be conscious that the guy doesn't really care as much for the people around him as the girl would.
Not necessarily. I mean, if your character is desensitized, then you're going to have to build that in.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
There are obviously sensitive males. We care
We
about
don't hang out with them though. You can't even shake their hand without them go, "Oh, ouch." Do you like hanging out with sensitive males over, say, desensitized males?
I like artists. I
Oh,
like
so
art.
you hang out with
I like
sensitive people.
I like to hang out with artists
Yeah,
more so than football players. I just find that I have more in common, and the conversation has more depth to it.
absolutely. Yeah. I mean, some people might say football is an art, though. You know,
Yeah, it's
like,
very creative the way they come up with some of these plays.
yeah, yeah. When I was in football, the coach stopped giving me plays and just said, "Run it, just play the Bellezza," and that just meant to go get the quarterback, and that was it. I didn't have to
Yeah,
follow any. He's like, "Why aren't you learning the plays?" I go, That guy has the ball.
yeah, yeah. Right.
Get that guy, right?" And he's
Get
like,
that
"Yeah,
guy.
but, there's a strategy." And I go, "No, I'm faster than everybody on this field. I don't need strat because I would be able to run around the
You-
line quicker than they would even get
You're
like, they would
fast.
get the ball, and I'd be there already." And he
Was that
couldn't
in high
believe it.
school? High school?
Yeah, high school. Yeah, yeah, yeah,
Oh
yeah.
wow,
Yeah, I played every sport
you
growing up.
did?
Yeah, and then I decided I wanted to play guitar,
Uh huh.
because it was less painful.
Yeah, yeah.
And my fingers would hurt for a couple of days, and then I'd be good. But in football or basketball, you're sore for the rest of the month. Like, I don't have time
Right.
for that. No, yeah, I was a big sports guy, and then I just kind of like stepped away from it.
Hmm.
But I've always been creative. Comic. I started as a comic book illustrator. That was where
Wow.
my career started, and then it moved to like writing the comic books for them, and then I became a musician. Then I got paid to write lyrics and music and then I got into writing, and writing's always been my passion, though, and that's why it's my main focus now. And for the last, I don't know, I'd say 10 years, I've mostly been writing for people or myself, or I do a lot of developmental editing. So basically, you give me a story, and I make sense of it.
Hmm.
And I can break it because there's rules in every section of a story. Like in the beginning of the ordinary world, you there's certain things you have to do, and there's certain things you can't do. And if you do them, then it changes the ordinary world to a different element of the story.
Hmm.
Like in the ordinary world, you never want to present anything that creates change or action, because now that moment becomes the inciting incident. And in your story, for the narrative, you have to say to yourself, do I want the inciting incident to be activated yet? Or do I
Hmm.
want to explore the freedom of the ordinary world and the rules based on that? Because you can't explore it anymore once you get into the inciting incident, because now
Right.
it's incited. So
Yeah.
you can continue to explore characters, but there's certain things you learn in the ordinary world that you don't necessarily learn as the book evolves, because you have to move the story forward. So those are little things you
I
got to
like
look
that word, ordinary world.
at.
That's it tells a lot about the process that there are in fact two worlds. There's the
Mhm.
fiction, and then there's the what we see in front of us.
Well, the ordinary world in a narrative is the world where they are capable, like it's their status quo. So
Uh,
your status quo could be, I'm in Saving Private Ryan. The status quo of the ordinary world is they're being released onto the beach at
uh,
Normandy and they're being attacked. That's their ordinary world. That's what they're used to. That's their status quo. That's where they're capable. And then what's the inciting incident? Hey, these brothers died. There's one left. We need to go find them. So the
mm-hmm,
inciting incident is that they have to. So the status quo is they're going from being hunters and killers and soldiers to saviors and going to protect and save this character. So it changes the status quo of what
mm,
we are seeing. And in a romance, the status quo would be either they are in a relationship and one of them loses their relationship and that becomes the inciting incident. But the ordinary world is before they lose the relationship, or it's a single person. And what's their inciting incident? The meet
yeah,
cute when they meet the potential love interest.
mm-hmm,
So,
mm-hmm,
but ordinary world is a very important part of storytelling because without
right,
seeing where they are and who they are and what they're potentially capable of,
mm-hmm, mm-hmm,
um, we can't challenge that.
right,
So if you don't set up your character and who they are, what they are, their motivations, desires, the themes, maybe the promise of the story, if we don't set that up and you just throw them into a narrative, now things are happening, but nothing is happening.
right,
And that's why the ordinary world's so important because you can't challenge what we don't know.
mm-hmm,
Right.
mm-hmm,
And you can't just challenge characters because that's not interesting. That's just
mm-hmm,
things happening. If you just throw, hey, we're going to throw him into a volcano. Can he get out? And it's like, I don't know because I don't know
mm-hmm,
who the character is.
mm-hmm.
So that's why
Interesting,
you can't start with a midpoint. But
right,
people say you can. I go, no, but the midpoint if you start at the midpoint conflict, now that becomes their ordinary world.
ah,
And there is an inciting incident, wherever you start them, what you could start them as like fighting in a boxing match.
mm-hmm,
Muhammad Ali fighting in a boxing match, which is how his movie starts off. That's his ordinary world. That's where he's
right.
capable. That's where his status quo is. He's not challenged to the point where his status quo changes. It's just who he is, right?
So
And
if for example, your movie involves aliens or a book involves, you need to establish that pretty much, soon.
it depends. If the aliens are the conflict, they don't have to come in or at least acknowledgement of them until the inciting incident.
Okay.
If they're a part of the narrative, as in we're following the aliens, they
Yeah.
would be a part of the ordinary world.
Right.
If it's something like Men in Black, which is about aliens,
Yeah.
the story isn't actually about the aliens. It's about a character that discovers this underground world. So
Mm-hmm.
his ordinary world is he's a cop. He's a New York cop.
Mm-hmm.
His inciting incident, he runs down a very difficult alien, sees the eyes breathe, right? Right. And then he's like, huh? And then Kay finds him and goes, there's this whole other world. And then the second act starts when he goes, I'm in. And he goes, all right, let's do this.
Right.
So, in that situation, to answer your question, the aliens aren't really introduced until the inciting incident when he sees the eyes,
Mm-hmm.
right? But in Men in Black 2, his ordinary world is he's in that world, and the opening scene actually starts with him interacting with aliens already
Mm-hmm.
because that's his
That
status quo.
right.
So you got to look at it that way, you know.
I wrote. That's very interesting. I'm glad that you enlightened us on that. I wrote a story about returning to Vietnam.
Oh yeah,
Not my cousin. That's him there. Not that one. This guy, the tall guy.
he's not the Vietnamese guy.
No, no, no.
Mike Domino, the Italian, related blood related to the Vietnamese guy.
Yeah. So there it is. We co-wrote it.
Very cool.
It took 4 years because every time we thought we were done, Michael would come up with a new memory that was suppressed, or would
Wait, your
find it.
brother's name is Michael?
Oh no, he's my cousin. Did
Oh,
I
your
say brother? Okay.
maybe you did. I'm sorry. I'm
Oh, his cousin. He's
it's
my
cousin.
cousin.
So your cousin's Michael.
Yeah,
So
my
you guys are
cousin.
the M&Ms.
Yeah.
Tastes great. Melts in your mouth, not in your hands. The story. I like it. I like it.
So we went there, and
You went to Vietnam?
yeah, I went there. I went there for two reasons. The my other world is plastic recycling,
Mm-hmm.
and Vietnam was moving up. China was kind of had plateaued, and a lot of the work was going to Vietnam. So I wanted to get a jump on the competitors and get over there and set
Yeah.
up an agency and start shipping to Vietnam. We made a few shipments. It didn't. I was very premature.
Yeah.
It still needed the market needed another 5-7 years to develop.
Yeah.
Payment methods, shipping methods, things like that didn't
And China
really.
is known for having an overflow of garbage and recyclables that go into the ocean. So,
Well, they
we,
put a clamp on that. They had something called National Sword
oh,
about 7-8 years ago,
well,
and
that's
they
good.
just that's why we're shipping a lot now to more to Thailand, where it's going to Thailand as scrap. They're making pellets out of it, and they're shipping those pellets to China.
Nice, nice. Did you go to North or South Vietnam?
I went to well, it's all one now.
Oh, it's just one region now.
Yeah, it's Vietnam. Well,
Well, Vietnam is the country, but there was two.
we were in the south.
The South. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
A little town called Roc Kien. It was about 35 miles from Ho Chi Minh City, which used to be
Oh, Ho Chi
Saigon.
Minh. Yeah, yeah.
Ho Chi Minh City.
It's where all the prostitutes were during Vietnam.
Yeah, yeah.
That's
Love
right.
you, long time.
I love you a long time. Yeah, yeah, yeah. My father used to speak Vietnamese all the time around the house. It's crazy. I'm like, what are you doing? He's like, I don't know. I'm trying to curse at you guys without being mean.
Was he there?
Yeah, he got blown up in Vietnam.
Oh,
Yeah, yeah, yeah. He's the funniest story he told was he goes when he got blown up, he wasn't so nervous going up. He was more nervous coming down when he realized he was falling further down than he flew up, and he couldn't understand how until he realized he was falling into the hole that was created by
later. The bomb
by the
crater.
mortar. Yeah,
Wow. Wow.
yeah. He landed. He was on fire and everything. It was crazy. He didn't think he was gonna die, but he was like he didn't want to look down, for obvious reasons.
Did
But
he come out back with all of his limbs, or is he?
yeah, yeah. I mean, he just passed away recently.
Oh, sorry to hear
Him
that.
and my mom just it was terrible. But uh, yeah, he came back. He didn't come back. Let's put it that like he didn't come back.
Right, his spirit.
Yeah, he was pretty messed up for a long, long time. I don't think he was like quote unquote normal until he was like in his mid-50s
Mm-hmm.
when
Mm-hmm.
he was just kind of like becoming more mellow. But if anyone understands PTSD or at least experiencing it as a third person, I can definitely
Well,
tell you stories.
well, Michael, when he came back, he lived with us for a while, and he eventually went to Hofstra University to get a degree in theology,
Oh, all right, yeah.
and then he took off. He went to France, and he joined this like Franciscan Brotherhood.
Oh, cool.
Remember, he had to change his name to David for 14
Oh,
years
yeah,
because
yeah,
there
yeah,
was already a brother Michael was there.
yeah, yeah. You
So
got to
he
do
was
that.
that was his life. And his aunt, whom he was very close with, kind of encouraged him to come back to the United States, and got his law degree and worked as a lawyer for a couple of years there before he eventually retired to Vancouver.
Oh, interesting. Well, that's if you're going to retire anywhere.
Yeah.
Vancouver. Did he learn French? He's fluent in French now.
Oh yeah, he speaks French. He taught himself Chinese.
Oh,
I don't know which Cantonese, I think.
Cantonese.
He,
Oh, all
he
right.
went. He lived in 9 years, and I sent him on a mission for plastics to China, and he didn't come back for 9 years.
He's like, I love it here.
He wasn't working for me at that time. He was working for his brother, who
Yeah.
was the CEO of Cherry Lane Music.
Oh, that's cool. Yeah, yeah,
Yeah, the Fremont, and
yeah. They do a lot of the tab books and stuff like that. The
is that right?
cherry.
Yeah, they
Yep, yep.
started out in sheet music.
Well, yeah, that's the tab books. So like
Oh,
they sheet music and tab. So they were a big. That's where you buy a lot of the books. So that's interesting that you got to work with your cousin and write a book based on his experience.
And we made it.
Uh,
I made it short because he unearthed all of these Super 8 tapes.
oh, cool, cool.
Actually, his brother had them because he said when he came back, he says, "Take these. I don't care what you do with them. Throw them in the garbage. I never want to see him again."
Yeah.
But Peter didn't do that. He held on to them. So when he found out we were making this book together, he said, you want the Super 8s, Michael?" And he's
Yeah.
like, "Yeah, give him the mic." See what
Now,
he,
did the capes get in the way with the Super 8s, or did like that didn't affect the playing of the tapes? Because they're supers, so they have to have capes.
tape.
Yeah, tape. Yeah, they're super tapes.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, so if you're a superhero,
Small, little tiny.
yeah,
Yeah,
yeah, but it's a
negative.
super. Like Superman. Superman has a cape.
No,
Don't they get capes? Then they all
I
have
don't know
little
why
tiny
they
capes.
call it super. Yeah, and my father was in that business. He worked for a company called Berkey.
Yeah,
They made it, photo, which is a part of my story because as a youngster, I always had a dark room where I would
yeah.
develop, my photography. And as a matter of fact, on this Vietnam trip, I had my little, before I left for the States for Vietnam, I bought a little Casio, digital camera. It was pre iPhones.
Yeah.
And we got together. As part of our search for this house where they lived and fought from, um, he wanted to see. I'm losing my train of thought here.
It's all right. Let's pull it into the station.
Yeah.
The little engine that could. I know we got it. We got it. Listen, Mike, we're getting close to the hour, so I like to usually end the show with a very specific question that I ask all my guests. So I'm gonna pop it up and I'm gonna read it, and then if you can. So, what is one piece of advice you discovered about writing, either through someone else or yourself, that completely changed the way you approach the writing process?
Well, I need to fall back on Bukowski again. Um, and the fact that he gave me, the confidence to write about anything, about anyone,
Mm-hmm.
and it doesn't have to be some grand event. It could be, like himself at the he finds raw material at the racetrack or at the post office. He wrote that book called Post Office.
Oh yeah, yeah,
Ham
yeah.
on Rye. Um, so yeah, that changed my life. It said that I too can, create this thing, and it doesn't have to be for money. Just writing for the sake of writing or art for the sake of art.
Yeah.
Um, that's yeah. I know that I already discussed this, but he's number one. He's the guy that really. And I made this book here, kind of something like a cover he would like.
Oh yeah, Cadillacs on the Bowery.
I took this picture. I was invited to recite some of my poems at the Bowery Poetry Club.
Nice.
And my two friends were there waiting for me. It was a little early, so I walked around the block and I saw that and I took the picture and then I went in and recited my poetry.
Yeah. You were like,
So,
boom, I'm in.
back to the Casio.
Okay.
Um,
Casio it up.
yeah, it's big. That's why I want to get back to it. So we got a hold of a former Vietnamese soldier
Mm-hmm.
and who was now a farmer. And our guide introduced us to the farmer. So Michael came over, and on this like deck, the two of them were discussing wartime stories, wartime events through our interpreter. And I said I'm going like this with the camera. And when we were done with this very profound event, I mean, they were showing each other scars. I
Yeah,
got shot
yeah.
here, I got bayoneted here. This is hot property.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
And I'm going back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. And we're on the street, and I said, Michael, look at this, and I go, and the button that went from still to video stuck. So I had like 15 minutes of a teapot.
Yeah.
um, so so I really couldn't live with myself. I
Yeah.
really had to, the whole day I just was distracted. We got back to the hotel. I couldn't sleep, and I woke up in the middle of the night, and I wrote, rather, because I didn't have the video, I didn't have the pictures. All I had was my experience,
Yeah.
my imagine, and my what I had witnessed. So I wrote that. I wrote that little. I wrote a short story, and it eventually, morphed into this bigger story.
Yeah.
Um, but it taught me that I don't need my camera necessarily anymore. That if I witness something, it's a picture in words. I
Yeah.
think I think that kind of captures my style.
Is that you take pictures with words.
Right. My first email address was poetography.
Oh, I like it. Poetography. I like that.
Yeah.
Now, with that said, that book, when you, well, not that book, but when you went back to your room and you wrote what you had remembered and experienced, did you write it in second person?
Um, I wrote it like, we entered the farm. There was a water buffalo in the background. There was a one armed man.
Yeah.
That's how I wrote it.
So you were like using like we and I.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's second person.
Okay.
Yeah, the second person is I entered the room and I realized to myself, there's something missing and eerie about this.
Yeah.
I was cautious, but I still stepped forward. Like that's all second person,
Okay.
which is very rarely written in a book. So it's interesting if did the story that you wrote in a book turn into second person, or you altered it to a third or first person?
No, it stays that way.
It stays in second person.
Yeah, but it goes back to, here you see that's the village.
Yeah.
You can see, and what I did was I juxtaposed I went there in 2007. This picture is from 1968. So
Woo.
when I'm writing the story, we don't use italics. And when Michael writes his memories, um, it's in italics.
Yeah.
The sergeant said something, and the soldier went into a hut and emerged with another dirty shirt. He jerked it over the boy's head, covering his face, and then tied it around his neck, leaving no slack.
Yeah, yeah. That's
Pretty
pretty
heavy
good.
duty.
That's third person. That was third person.
Okay.
But that's still interesting. You guys, so you're letting as an aesthetic, you allowed the format of the book to show different variations in the.
Right. We would go from 2007 to 2000 to 1968, back and forth throughout the whole book.
Now, how come you didn't call it the war inside my head?
Because we had an experience where we eventually found the house that he was looking for,
Yeah,
and he was surrounded by the family. The father of the house now was a little boy then, and he remembers getting kicked out of his own house. So at the end, Michael gets all choked up. We're in the back. He says that latrine was there. I
yeah.
remember that latrine. And so he said, I feel bad. I feel like I need to pay rent for the time that we lived in your house.
Yeah, yeah.
A year.
I mean, back then, what was that? $40 a year,
Yeah. Everyone we thought we thought everybody, all the Vietnamese were going to laugh.
Yeah.
And they're like, yeah, good idea. Pay rent now. So he whips out a 20, and the our interpreter says, no, too little, and
Too
everybody,
little.
too little. So he whips out. There was like 7 or 8 people there. They would have had to divide it up. And as he pulls out $100 bill, and then cigarettes are going in the mouth, and so that's why it's called Time to Pay the Rent.
Okay, well that makes sense then. Time to pay the rent. It's part of the story.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right.
Yeah.
Look, you gotta pay the rent, whatever it is.
Exactly.
Listen, Mike, thanks for being on the show. Before we go, why don't you tell the audience how they can find you?
Okay. My email is Michael Domino, the number 8 at gmail.com. My latest Facebook page is Michael Dean. My middle name is Dean Domino.
All right, nice. And that's Domino for anyone listening on the
Right.
radio show. Dean is Dean, Dean, and Michael is Michael, as in the Archangel. Is that who you were named after? Is it the Archangel or Michael Corleone?
I never really asked. I'm curious about the Dean too. Was it Dean Martin or James Dean?
Maybe it was like they wanted you to have a title, like you're the dean. You know?
That's funny. I like that.
Yeah. I have a friend. His name is Baron, like boy in Spanish, but he's
Okay.
Italian. And I didn't realize his real name was Baron
Oh,
because his last name was like a name that would go with the character of his like performance, but his whole name was his real name. And we are on the phone one time. I was like, "How did you earn the title of Baron?" Because like I had a character with Lord. It was like Lord Telmo and all that. And I was like, "I had to work to get my Lord title." And he's like, "No, Baron's my name." He's like, I was like, "Oh, it's not a title." He's like, "No, I'm not a Baron. I am Baron." And I was like, "Well, that means you can't have kids." And he goes, "What do you mean?" I go, "Because you're Baron."
It just keeps going
I love
deeper and
words.
deeper.
Oh yeah. I love playing with words. I don't care how stupid it sounds. Sometimes it's just words are my favorite thing in the world.
We didn't get to, and it's time to wrap it up, but we didn't get too much to talk about the plastics.
Oh well, we do buy scrap plastics. Does that include like bad plastic surgeries?
No. No, it's not. It's not even curbside. It's industrial plastic that comes from one factory, and then we pick it up, and then we ship it to another factory.
So you're like Gersh, but for plastic,
Yeah.
right? If anyone doesn't know what Long Island is, Gersh is where you hide the bodies. Uh, yeah, could you chop up the car for me? Just two Italians having fun. That's what just old school, old school. All right, let me do my
Okay.
final thoughts and end the show. Again, thanks, Mike, for being here.
You're
Just
welcome.
give
Thank you for inviting me.
yeah, it was a lot
It's
of fun. A
fun.
lot of fun. We learned a lot. So, all right, let's get to that final thought. So everybody out there, just so one of the greatest things about being a writer is that your experience evolves from wherever it evolves. So, be it your journey into plastics or going to Vietnam and exploring the history of your relatives. Or maybe even going into a movie theater and being inspired to purchase a book that inspires you to write. Find your inspiration where and when you can. And when it hits you, don't run from it. Explore it. See what can happen. And you never know. You might find yourself being a writer one day. With that said, as always, keep developing your right mindset. I'll see you next time. Thank you so much. Bye.